Welcome to the Life on Shuffle podcast, a collection of stories about people who have taken chances, embraced the unexpected, and inadvertently discovered their true passion. Today we are featuring Matt, a diesel mechanic instructor from Granite Falls, North Carolina. I am Erin Shows, and my co-hosts today are Emily, Ethan, Jose, and Josh. Born in California and raised in Oregon, Matt has been in the Army where he spent time at Fort Bragg in North Carolina, as well as time in Korea, Germany, Kosovo, and 2 deployments to Iraq. During this time, he worked as a vehicle mechanic. After leaving the military, he moved to North Carolina and became a security guard. He then completed an associate degree from Central Piedmont Community College in heavy equipment maintenance technology. He worked for Caterpillar before becoming a diesel mechanic instructor. Now he is the director of the Diesel and Heavy Equipment Technology program at Caldwell Community College and Technical Institute. Matt is currently pursuing a bachelor's degree from Appalachian State University in workforce development. In his free time, he also enjoys serving as a youth pastor for his church. He is married to his wife Morgan, who is also a veteran, and together they have 2 children. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Oh, thanks. Glad to be here.
So what made you agree to join us today?
I have a hard time saying no when people ask for me for help.
Okay. Yeah, so I walked up to Matt and just asked him, hey, do you like your job? And that was the start of our conversation to get him on today. So we're excited for you to be here.
Oh, absolutely.
Could you tell us about your childhood?
From what I can remember, just military packed a whole bunch of stuff in my head. So I kind of look at it like a hard drive. I've got like a 10 gig hard drive and 8 of it's military still. So I've got to kind of try to defrag it to find the childhood. As a kid, I was one of those guys that always took my toys apart. I had to know how they worked. Sometimes it was pretty cool. Sometimes it was really, sadly simple and sort of took the magic out of the whole thing. Like operation, it's just a DC motor with a single like blade on a propeller. And it just goes bzzz. And I was like, really? I was expecting a lot more magic. But I was constantly outside when I wasn't taking things apart. I lived in Oregon. So Oregon, for about 8 months of the year, is raining pretty hard. So you either go outside and enjoy it, or stay inside and take things apart. So I did lots of Legos, lots of toys, but I grew up outside climbing things. My mom, she learned pretty quickly, don't look for me on the ground. If you can't find Matt, look up in a tree somewhere. So that was pretty much me.
Do you think that where you grew up affected your first career choice?
Kind of, sort of, maybe. Not so much the where, but the why. My father died when I was 3, so my mom moved us from California up to Oregon to get us away from a whole bunch of chaos that was going on in California. I had a lot of anger issues as a kid growing up, and so I didn't pay a lot of attention during school. In fact, when I was your guys' age, let's say school was not my top priority. Nor was education. Mostly it was being a clown. So I rapidly found out that I had no idea what I wanted to do. Everybody was telling me, oh, you have to have your future planned out. And I'm like, I'm 15. How am I supposed to know what my future is going to be? I don't even know what kind of jobs are out there. I knew about fast food, but that's what everybody does in high school. So I'm like, well, how am I supposed to know and pick a job if there's so many jobs out there I don't know? And there's a guy that came in. I was working at a pizza joint. And this guy came in, my boss came back, and she says, Matt, the police are here for you. And so I'm sitting thinking, nope, nobody knows about that or that. So I'm like, let's go find out. So I stuck my head out the door, and I was like, really? You can't tell that guy's from the Army? And she goes, well, how am I supposed to know? I'm like, he's in Army green. He was in his dress uniform. So I walk up to him, and I said, what can I do for you? And he says, well, hey, I'm Sergeant Daly Ray, and you're Matt Smith, right? I said, yeah. And he goes, all right, cool. I would like to talk to you about joining the Army. I said, sure, let's do it. And he goes, okay, well, where do you want to sit? And I said, no, let's do the Army. And he's like, well, don't you want to hear what I have to say first? And I was like, if you have to, I've got a break. And, he goes, I'll buy you dinner. All right, cool, let's do it. So we sat down for an hour, talked about all kinds of different stuff, and ended up deciding I was going to join the Army. Why? I grew up watching G.I. Joe, and it was always like the G.I. Joe was kind of the patriotic superhero. A lot of people would have said as I was young, if you cut me, I'd have bled red, white, and blue. But That sort of formulated the next bit. If I hadn't joined the military when I did, I wouldn't have graduated high school. I got a number of credits for going to basic training between my junior and senior year, and that's what made it to where I could pass high school. So it wasn't so much where I grew up, but kind of the situation that led up to that.
How did your parents react to you joining?
She was like, so you want to do this? I said, I don't have any other options, so why not? And she said, okay, I guess if that's what you want to do.
So, like, your mom was very supportive, throughout your whole life, like
Absolutely.
just with everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that reminded me, like, some of the decisions that I made when I was 19, 20, they weren't bad. They were just not in necessarily like the life that my parents thought I would end up leading.
Right.
But I can remember the point when they were like, "Oh no, like if you want to do that, that's like not our thing, but no, go and do it." And I think having like that sometimes can like really support somebody, that's going out there making, decisions that they want to as a young adult.
Yeah, very much so. As a parent, looking at it from the other side, being able to look back at what my mom did, she supported me and my two brothers in pretty much anything we did. But she would guide us. Okay, well, that's great. You want to do that, but let's be safe about it. Or let's think about it. And now looking back as a parent, I'm like, I really want my daughter to do this, but I know I can't force her into it. And so it makes a lot more impact on what my mom did for me when I was a kid.
So when you were a teenager, did you ever want to go to college, or was that something that came about after the military?
As a kid that was in the position of finding out that college is something that people do, I knew pretty quick that it wasn't going to work for me until I grew up more. If I had tried to do college directly after high school, I would have bombed pretty much every class. I'd have just played around instead of doing anything, and I wouldn't have had any idea what I wanted to do. So the military truly woke me up to the fact that I need to have a plan, and it really helped me grow up quite a bit.
Can you tell us about your military experience? And also, a question about the Kosovo part where you were in. Like, I've been like looking into like the war in Yugoslavia. Were you in like during that time where Yugoslavia was going through all that stuff, or no?
So our deployment to Kosovo, we were the second unit, the second United States military unit on the ground after the Yugoslavian army had already pushed through Kosovo. It was a joint venture from the NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Alliance organization, but it was a NATO mission, and the Russians had already taken over the airfield, and they weren't allowing anybody to fly in there for a while because they wanted to, I don't know, capitalize on it or something, I don't know. But they didn't have enough food. So basically we flew in and pushed MREs out the back and said, hey, thanks for holding it for us. They went to Eton, and then we kind of went and moved on. I was in a field artillery unit at that point. So basically it's long-range cannons. Our unit was really, really psyched out because they actually got to shoot live rounds in a conflict, so to say, and they were one of the first ones to do it. The live rounds they shot were illumination rounds. It was basically a real high-altitude flare. But because I was a mechanic assigned to this unit, I didn't really have a purpose with any of that. So I ended up becoming the NCOIC of basically a graveyard detail. What would happen is the military intelligence would send military intelligence officers and interpreters of the local, like with the local nationals, to the local surrounding cities and say, did anything happen here, with combat? Was there any type of, did the Yugoslavian army come through? What happened? And they kind of investigate. And there was a resistance group called the KLA, the Kosovo Liberation Army. These people were kind of armed combatants. And so if they were involved, we didn't come in and get involved. But if the Yugoslavian army came through and did something to civilians, then and if there were civilians that were killed, then what we would do is we would come in, we would set up a perimeter with their permission. we would set up a perimeter, which is basically a guarded circle around the graveyard where these people were buried. And then we would invite the family members in, and we would exhume the bodies. And then we had doctors from all over the place, from Switzerland and Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and a bunch of other places. But they would do autopsies on the bodies, and they would catalog the things that happened to these bodies. And then once that was done, and the family members were allowed to be in there the whole time, and whenever that was done, then we would inter the bodies again, the way that they did it, and then just kind of do a service, sort of for the deceased, and then we would move on and catalog that data. These doctors, the data and the autopsies that they performed, help build the evidence against Slobodan Milosevic, that he got tried for war crimes in The Hague. So, I mean, it was a lot more important than I ever truly realized when I was going over there.
Things like that would be occurring in other countries. So, if we were to try and do that here, there's a whole legal thing, which maybe that was taken care of. But there's also like a lot of religious and spiritual kind of like tradition in what, you can't just go and start plundering through a graveyard. So, like, what do you remember, like, what the major religion would be? And, like, would there be aspects of that like, had to occur when that was going down?
So you predominantly had Serbians, which were kind of along the Yugoslavian side. And then you had Albanians. Serbians were predominantly Muslim. Albanians were predominantly Christian. And so there was a lot of that going on. But this has been a conflict that has been going on for hundreds of years between Serbians and Albanians. And Kosovo was kind of the breaking point of where that happened. Milosevic, with his army, they were pushing down through, trying to drive the Albanians out of Kosovo. And so they would do some pretty atrocious things to them. And they would constantly try and move them out. And our purpose with NATO was to come in and put a stop to the hostilities. And when we first came in, the Albanians were cheering and they're like, yeah. And so they would start to fight back against the Serbians. And they were like, when we told them stop and took their guns away, they're like, well, no, that's not what we're here for. We're not here for you. We're here to stop the whole thing. So as far as did they talk to the people first? I was only told that we had permission to be there. The military intelligence would come through and they would do all of their questioning prior to me ever showing up. What I was in charge of was the security for the site. So I was in charge of making sure the soldiers were there, that we kept people out that weren't supposed to be there, that we protected the doctors and that type of stuff and let them do what they did. The interpreters had already spoken with the family members, and the family members were perfectly okay with us being there. If they didn't want us to do it, we didn't push it. So there were some that they didn't want anything to do with it. Most of the time, when it was explained what we were doing, and the few that I talked to, they were very thankful that we were doing that. I guess kind of on the thought process of maybe we're trying to get some justice for their family members that got hurt.
I have a question. So, considering you went to military and all of this stuff, you went to during the Yugoslav War and also in the Middle East. Was there any moment during your whole military part of your career where you were like in danger or something like that, where you thought it was over for you?
There's quite a few times in Iraq that things got hairier than expected, and I was definitely thanking God on the way back that it didn't go a slightly different way. There's predominantly when I was in Iraq, my job was I was in charge of a recovery team, and so we would use these large vehicles to go collect any vehicle that had broke down, ran out of fuel, blew up, caught on fire, fell in a ditch, anything like that, whatever was going on. We went over to take care of that. And so they would call us up. We'd have a security team. We'd have my recovery guys. I mean, we were kind of glorified tow truck drivers, but there was a whole lot more to it than that. I mean, we had to chain these things together to keep them together sometimes. But they found out, they being the combatants in Iraq, the insurgents. They found out when they blew up a vehicle, then all of a sudden, there would be a whole bunch of activity around that, and then a whole bunch more vehicles would come in, and then they would open up the bigger space, and then we'd do something inside, and then all of a sudden we'd all get up and go off as a unit. And so they started planting bombs, a second bomb underneath it. So they would blow up the first bomb, and then they would wait until we arrived and start trying to blow up the second bomb. So there was a number of times that things got pretty close. My wrecker got blown up from underneath. I was out in front of it trying to pull him forward, and it ended up getting blown up underneath me. So my biggest fear was that my driver got hurt. And so I was over there beating on the door, and he had the door, it's called combat locking, but there's a door, a slide that you can do inside the door that you cannot open it from the outside. And I'm sitting here thinking, great, he's hurt. I have to tell Di, his wife, and I can't get into it. So how in the world am I supposed to get into this thing? The windows are like 3 inches thick. It's all bulletproof and hardened. And I'm like, how in the world, if he's hurt, am I supposed to get in here? And finally he turns on the inside light and he's like, I'm good. So I don't know if his bell got rung like I did. I just know after it blew up, I got up off the ground, and that was about 2 weeks before I came back for good. And so, that was one of the hairier times. But I mean, there's a number of times when you do this stuff, and it's entirely possible you're in danger. There's bullets flying by. You hear them pinging off of stuff, but everybody was stuck there until I did my job. So I focused on doing my job and let the security guys do their job. So until we got things hooked up and ready to go, we were sitting ducks. So it was pretty much just mind on the mission, do what you got to do. And if it's my time, it's my time. I know where I'm going, and I was happy with that.
How often did you have to go out to recover vehicles?
Oh, quite often. I had 4 teams. And so we did rotations. 1 week we were on call for any type of recovery mission. The second week we were back up on call. So if we needed 2 wreckers, then we would take the second wrecker. The third week we were on convoy support. So we ran, they're called log packs, but you take from a large base, you go out to smaller bases, and you take the supplies that they would need for daily life. And we always put a wrecker with those in case something happened with it. Then we could collect them and take them off. And then the fourth week was kind of your rest week. Although sometimes we needed a third wrecker at the 88, and then rest week is, well, maybe next time.
So you said that the military helped you mature. Do you think it helped you plan for what you were going to do in life?
The Army introduced me to a lot of things that I had no chance of being introduced to. It introduced me to leadership, introduced me to coordination with others, introduced me to being a mechanic, and something that I found I really fell into. Strangely enough, when I first started, I was a combat medic. I was like a paramedic for the military. And then when I graduated high school, I wanted to get out of a reserve unit that I was in because it was just not my speed. And so I called my recruiter again, and I'm like, can I go active duty? Because this is killing me. I got to speed things up. And so I ended up having to go back through selection, and they didn't have any medic slots available in the regular Army. So they said, you've got to pick another job. And so I went from fixing people to fixing vehicles. And, kind of same concept, just a little less wet. But just being able to get taught that stuff and get an idea of, hey, this is taking things apart and putting it together the way it's supposed to be done. It really kind of clicked, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it. I guess I'm one of those people that I need some immediate feedback. So if you do it right and you turn the vehicle on and it starts when it wasn't starting beforehand, boom, that's it. That's instant feedback. And that would really click with me, and I was good to go with it. So they introduced me to things I didn't have a chance to do before. And there's a lot of other things in there too, but it really helped me decide the path I wanted to go forward with.
When did you decide that you wanted to go to college?
Well, I got out of the military after 16 years, and I had been a technician for most of that. I moved into North Carolina, got a job as a security guard for Brink Security. I was on the armored trucks, driving those around, and then it got to the point in our maintenance shop that that one mechanic wasn't able to keep up with it. He was having a hard time. And so I volunteered. I'm a mechanic. I mean, I'm a trained technician. I can help out on days that I'm not driving if you're okay with that. So I started talking with the tech, and he's like, let's give it a shot. I could really use some help. So I came in and started going through stuff, and I learned pretty quick that the military had set me up for to know a lot of things, but there's a lot of holes that I had in my knowledge. Because in the military, the whole purpose is to get the vehicle back in the fight as soon as possible. And because we're in, when we say in the field, we're living in tents, you never really take the engine open and apart. We would diagnose it to a problem inside the engine, and then we would take that engine out, put a new engine in, and that engine we took out would go back to a clean area to get rebuilt. Being an instructor now, that makes a whole lot more sense to me, because I'm like, oh my gosh, there's no way this thing would have ran if we had taken it apart in downtown Iraq, So now I that makes a lot more sense. But I didn't have a lot of knowledge about how the inside of an engine worked. I knew all about the outside stuff, but I didn't know that. And so I'm like, well, I've got these big holes, and I need to do something about it. And Anjay, he's the Turkish mechanic that we had. He was like, they have a program at Central Piedmont where you can go and learn about like diesel mechanics. So I looked into that, and I was like, all right, cool, I could do that. Just go take a couple classes. I could take some engine classes and kind of fill up these holes. And so I went ahead and did that. And when I applied, I found out they had a Caterpillar technician course working on Caterpillar equipment, and that I could potentially get a job working for Caterpillar afterwards. Well, Caterpillar is great, big, heavy stuff. Military equipment is great, big, heavy stuff. I was like, cool, and that's a whole lot better. Working on cars, I don't like it much because everything is so small and it feels like I'm going to break everything. So, working on the big things, I know I can put some oomph to it, and I'm not worried about snapping off a bolt. So I went to that, and I applied for the Caterpillar technician course, and I got in. And that was a 1-year course, so I had to quit my job at Brinks. But it was a 1-year course, and the military GI Bill that I received made it to where I was actually able to do that and still live. I got money for going to school that allowed me to pay all my bills until I graduated a year later.
I'm familiar with the GI Bill, but I don't know about like the listeners or the other people in the room. If you wanted to just explain that opportunity that our military veterans have.
Sure. Essentially, after you serve a set number of years, and I don't know what it is now, it's changed a little bit, but after you serve a few years, you start gaining this GI Bill. It's called the Post 9/11 GI Bill now, but and this is educational money. So what they would do with when I was in college, I would sign up for the classes, and then I would go to the military representative on campus. And they would then submit all of my paperwork to the VA. The VA would then say, okay, you're taking this many credits, so we'll pay all of your tuition, and we'll give you a stipend based off of how many credits you're taking. That's kind of a living stipend. So I got, after I was in for a long time, I ended up getting a little over $1,500 a month for living expenses. Plus, I would get all of the Pell Grant money back. So the military my GI Bill had already paid everything. So each semester I would get all of the Pell Grant money back. So that was almost $3,000, maybe $3.5, almost $4,000. So I would take that $4,000 and spread it over the rest of the semester. So that plus the $1,500 stipend, plus they would pay my books. All of that made it to where I could pay my bills, my rent. I had enough gas to get to and from, all that type of stuff. So it was one of those benefits that is a great benefit. There's some benefits that a lot of people in the military are like, it's not that great. But that was a wonderful benefit. I didn't actually pay a dime for any of my my college classes yet.
So did you work for Caterpillar after you got out of that program?
Yeah. So I met Jeremy through that program. He was the main instructor, and went through the whole program. Really enjoyed it. Learned all kinds of stuff. Filled all those holes that I had. And then as we were getting to the very end of it, Jeremy came up to me and he said, have you ever thought about being an instructor? I said, an instructor for what? He's like, well, like for, a school instructor, like here at the college. And I was like, no. that's like a master's degree, right? There's I'm working on my associates. No, that's a long way away, all that kind of stuff. He said, no, you don't need any of that. And he said, you've got this ability to teach people complex things in ways that they understand. And you've got a kind of a commanding presence about you in the room, so it works. You'd make a great instructor. And I said, well, I mean, okay, but I mean, I got to go learn before I can come back and teach, right? So I just kind of blew that off, and I went through the program. At the end of the program, you work for Caterpillar in each of their divisions. They've got like an engines division. They have a hydraulics division. You've got field service, you've got the main shop, and these are different areas that you're working in for a few weeks at a time, just so they can get an idea of who you are, and so we can get an idea of what Caterpillar was. And it was nice because there wasn't culture shock that way. Sometimes you're in a school environment, and everything is all nice and clean and pretty, and then you go to work for somewhere like Caterpillar, and everything is covered in dirt. And so it's like, whoa, okay, hold on, it's a little different. But I was working with them. I got offered a job. I started working in their hydraulics division, and was rebuilding pumps and cylinders and hydraulic hammers and all that kind of stuff. And then I moved into their forklift division not long later. They got me up into Hickory. That way I didn't have to drive an hour, to and fro work every day. In their forklift division, I was working there for 2 years, and then Jeremy called me up and said, hey man, I've got a spot I need to talk to you about coming and being a teacher. So that's sort of another one of those forks in the road that it's like, huh.
Did you have any doubts about taking or accepting that position?
Yeah, I got to be honest. It was one of those positions that I would have taken a pay cut to go and teach. But the more he talked about it, and the more I thought about it, the more fulfilling it seemed. And so I had to do a lot of prayer about it. And I prayed about it, and I was kind of the whole Ezekiel thing. I'm like, throwing out the fleece, like, Lord, if this is what you want me to do, then let this happen. If this is what you want me to do, then let this happen. And every time I did that, I got a clear answer. And so I was like, okay, if this is what you want me to do, I'll roll with it. I've made plenty of decisions in my life that I went my own way, and it didn't work quite as well as I was hoping. So I have found through my experience that if I take the Lord's path, then it works a lot better, in better ways than I ever could imagine. So I felt that I was definitely supposed to go down there and do that. I was, the Lord is very clear about it. So I talked with my wife, and she was like, if that's what He wants, then who are we to argue? I said, all right, cool. And so I went ahead and applied and got the job, and hands down the best decision I have ever made.
So, like, how would you describe your time at Central Piedmont?
In the beginning, it was one of those things I had to really slow down. I had spent the past, gosh knows how many years, I had to account for every hour of my time. So I had to bill my time to customers. I had to be moving fast. I had to, anything that I was doing, if I couldn't bill that time to a customer, then it was time that my company was losing. And that I kind of took that personal. So I was constantly trying to move, go. When I got to the school, I'm like, all right, cool. I've got a week before the classes I'm supposed to teach start. There's got to be something I can do. I've got to do something. They said, well, you just got to wait until we get your passwords and everything like that set up in your accounts and all that. I'm like, okay, so how long is that going to take? It's 9 o'clock. And they're like, probably Friday. I was like, so I had 3 days, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do for 3 days? And they're like, just kind of take a break and, sort of follow Jeremy and, just kind of get used to stuff. And I was like, but that's like 8 hours of stuff that how am I supposed to account for that? I'm like, we don't do that here. I'm like, whoa, hold on, time out. What? So it really threw me, but I had to slow down, and in slowing down, I was able to kind of, really take a measure of my surroundings. I got to really look into what the classes were. I got to know the students better. I got to go and see the different instructors and how they do things, and I picked up a lot of teaching tactics from them I mean, I'd been teaching in the military forever, but it's really easy to say, soldier, go do this. And they have to do it because I outrank them. It's totally different when you're talking to civilians. So it kind of worked in my favor that I was able to watch them and pick up these techniques for teaching, younger people. So it was honestly very helpful. Then once that kicked in, I was in charge of the Cummins program, where Cummins, which is a major diesel engine manufacturing company, this company would send me students from all over the country. And they would come in, and for 2 weeks, I would pack as much information in their head as I could. I mean, they were drooling when they left. But we would tear engines apart, and it was all lab heavy for 40 hours a week. Just absolute lab heavy, push in as much info as possible. And they really took to it. I really took to it. Apparently, I had really good command of the classroom, so I didn't really have any issues that apparently some instructors have of, I don't really know what to do. I just basically told them if they didn't do it, I guess I had the error of you don't have a choice. So it kind of worked in my favor for that way. But I really, really enjoyed it. Being able to take something that's as complex as a common rail fuel system on a diesel engine and break it down to where this one student, my favorite student, she started with Cummins. Her prior job was a waitress. She had never dealt with anything mechanical, and I could break these complex systems down to where she could understand. And now I can't take all the credit. She was bright. She was very, very smart, and she did her work. She would sit there for those whole 2 weeks. She didn't go out with anybody or do anything. It was basically school and study and sleep and eat. I mean, she really put the work in, but she got it and she understood it. And there were so many times where she's like, I just don't get it. And all of a sudden she's like, oh, this does that. And I'm like, absolutely. And that whole like ding where the light pops up. I mean, that was amazing. I was addicted as soon as I got that first one. So, I mean, it's a lot of fun for me to take these things that people see as like, there's no way I could ever put an engine back together, and let them put it back in the engine and let it crank up and their lights just go off. It's so cool.
So when you were younger, did you ever think you'd be a teacher? Did you see that as an option?
I playfully thought that I might be a teacher when I was getting out of the military, and then I realized that that my military mentality and young children don't go together very well. And so I was like, you know what? Maybe not young kids, maybe high schoolers. And so I kind of started looking at that. And then the requirements of having a master's degree, I'm like, okay, I've got a long time for that, to go through that type of thing. Obviously, I'm still not there yet. But both of my parents, my mom and my stepdad, were both teachers. My stepdad taught wood shop for like 20 years. That's not really an option anymore. I'd love doing that, but you just don't do it anymore. But I saw the climate that teaching was going, and I was like, I don't really want to go that way. So I toyed around with it, but I never gave it real thought like this is definitely something I want to do.
How was the transition between teaching at Central Piedmont to here at CCC&TI?
It went pretty well because I get a broad leash up here. Nobody else in the school, except maybe one other person, have any clue what it is that I do and what I'm trying to do. And so I came up, I had really good support from the vice president that was hired, that was here when I was hired, along with my dean. And they're both like, I told them, this is what I want to do. This is how I want to do it. And this is why I want to do it. And they were like, okay, cool. Sounds great. If we can do it, let's do it. And I guess they had enough confidence in me to allow me to run with it. And I always try to come with a solution whenever I have a problem. So, I found this problem, but here's a solution that I suggest. They don't have to take it, but at least I come with an idea. And they've seemed to really enjoy that. And the students and the local industry is really supporting what we're trying to do here. So it's been really good, a very good transition.
You actually mentioned something that's popping up in a lot of these different conversations in the fact that like sometimes people love what they do and then they have to struggle with an environment that's like not allowing them to do it. And then others like are encountering an environment that is like really conducive to what it is, and then it makes them love what they do. So do you feel like you lean one side of that or the other? Like, is it the fact that you really get to design the program, or is it, you know, your love for mechanical things?
So, when I first got up here, it was all bells and whistles, and everything was going to be awesome. They were going to give me this great big spot down in the lower J building. In my mind, I had all these grand illusions that this was all going to keep growing and growing and growing, which I still have that plan. It's still going to do it. I'm going to take over the whole bottom of J building. But that's probably a few years to come. But it turned out that those plans got shot because we got this grant to build this. They're calling it the hospital, but it's a health services building. Maybe I call it the hospital, but it's this health services building where it's a multi-story building that's going right on top of where what we call S building is. That's where I was trying to move the people that were that are currently occupying the space that I needed. So since they were flattening that building, all of a sudden, guess what? We can't do it. We got the grant. That's where we're going to put it. It's the only place to put it. So your program can't go there. I'm like, okay, cool. So where's my program going to go? And they're like, well, we'll have to find you a spot. And my program kicked off in August of 2002 or 2022. I didn't get the bays that I was going to be teaching in until the tail end of July 2022. I had 2 weeks. I was graduating from truck driver training, and I had exactly 2 weeks to build everything before students arrived, and like space, all that kind of stuff. And I was like, you have got to be kidding me. My dean kind of talks. He was like, I'm pretty sure you were going to quit, because I was getting livid. We had made all these promises to all these people. These business partners, these students, all of these people, that this is what's going to happen and this is how we're going to do it. And all of a sudden, it's looking like I'm going to teach an engine class in a parking lot. And I'm like, I was so mad. But they ended up getting me that space. It's not ideal, but it works. And so, roll with the punches and keep on going. The military always taught me just keep pushing forward, no matter what. People say, oh, it can't get worse. Oh, yes, it can. No matter what you do, it can always get worse. And what we have over here is incredibly better than what so many other places have. So I've been in some really nasty places that have some very, very difficult conditions. So what I have to deal with here is nothing in comparison. So to answer your question, if I remember your question, basically, I do this, and I love to do this because I like to teach. I like the information, and I like the students. And there's a need that what I do is filling, and so I get that fulfillment both from I'm giving these students a skill set that they can work the rest of their life for. They will never go without a job if they so choose to. And so I'm enabling them to step up from where they were. I'm helping out the community and giving them technicians that we are in dire need of. And I don't know, it seems to be what I'm supposed to be doing. So how am I supposed to argue with that?
Have you had any setbacks? And if you have, how have they changed your view in your career, or how have they changed your career?
Well, if you talk to anybody that I was in basic training with, I was going to serve for 30 years if allowed, and I was going to die taking an M203 under the chest. I mean, I was all gung-ho, combat, let's go, 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 go. I grew up a little bit, but I never thought that I was going to get out of the military prior to retirement. I figured I was just going to keep doing it the whole time, and I'll stay in as long as they'll let me. My wife had different ideas when I went to Iraq the second time. She couldn't take it. When I came back after the first time, I was a wholly different person. I was struggling with a lot of demons, and so I was a completely different person. My daughter was 2 weeks old when I left. When I came back, she was a little over a year, And then my wife got pregnant real soon afterwards. And so all of that going on, along with, oh yeah, by the way, our unit is going to move to Germany now. So I had a lot of duties I had to take care of there. So it was very, very stressful for that whole year between when I got back and when we went to Germany. And then that year in Germany was pretty rough as well before we deployed, going back. She knew we were going back, and she was kind of dreading it the whole time. And then about a month after I got back in country, she was like, I can't do this again. I can't do it. And so she filed for divorce. I struggled for, I remember it was October, and pretty much the entirety of October, I didn't sleep, but maybe an hour or two here or there. I was constantly just milling over my head. What am I going to do? What about my kids? How is this going to happen? Am I ever going to see my kids again? How are they going to learn about God? All this stuff that was always like, just crucially important to me. And then finally at one point, it just dawned on me. And I remember I was walking down a dark, dusty street. I was by these concrete barriers that they use to guide the vehicles. And I just stopped and kind of pitched over one of them. And I was like, Lord, I am so sorry. Here I am. I confess belief in you, but I don't believe that you'll take care of my kids. I believe that I can take care of my kids better than you can. And I was like, I'm sorry. You know what? I give my kids to you. They are in your hands. I surrender anything that I hold claim, and I have to trust that you are going to take care of my kids better than I ever could. So whatever your plan is for them, if I'm part of it, awesome. If I'm not, please help me understand. And that next day, my best friend's wife, Di, she called my buddy and said, hey, I think she'll give Matt the kids if he wants them. So I called my mom and I was like, hey, I might be able to get the kids. Can you pick them up? I'm still in Iraq. I'm like, would you be able to fly over and pick them up? They're in Oregon. My kids are in North Carolina. And she's like, yeah, absolutely. But let me ask your dad. And so, the next thing I know, they're flying over, picking up my kids, taking them back into Oregon. And I am pursuing getting out of the military as fast as I can. Though a lot of people had asked me, you've been in 16 years. What's 4 more years? The way things were going, that would have been at least 2 more deployments. And my buddies that stayed in, they did 2 more deployments. I didn't think my kids could go that long without me, not especially in those formative years. I mean, they were 2 and almost 3, or a little over 3. So, for that early childhood years, my kids needed me more than the military did. So they had one dad. The military had tons of sergeants. So at that point, it was a pretty easy thought process to make that choice and get out. Never thought I would have done that. Never. But once I did get out, I was thinking, well, maybe I can do like reserve time and join in the reserves, and then just kind of fill the rest of the years that I need to where I can retire. So I had talked to the Air Force. And I was going to be stationed on the Oregon coast under radar battery, watching for North Korea to shoot missiles at us. And everything was set up that way. I had about another week before I was going to enlist, and I had ordered a Air Force uniform. Theirs were slightly different than the Army ones. And so I'm trying it out. I've got it on, making sure it all fits, that kind of stuff. And my daughter walks in the room behind me, and she sees me in uniform again and absolutely goes bananas. She loses it, starts screaming, throwing stuff everywhere. And so I'm like, all right, cool. I ripped it off, threw it away, said, nope, I guess I'm not going to be in the military. No more military for me. And that's the way that things have moved. Had I done it, I probably never would have been in the situation that got me here where I am today.
So what did you do after that point? Like, how did you get to North Carolina from that time?
The first year was kind of a PTSD blur. I had just come out of a combat zone. I was now a civilian for the first time in 16 years. I was a single parent, and I had no job or no future laid out in front of me. And I was reeling for a while, had really no idea what in the world I was going to do. And then my parents were still taking care of my kids. I was living with them for a while, and I started thinking I've got to get some kind of a job. And so I'm like, well, what about a mechanic? And I'm like, well, I don't have tools. You have to have your own tools as a mechanic. So I'm like, I don't have tools. So I could buy a bunch of tools. I'm like, but I don't really know a lot about engines. I don't really know a lot about this other stuff, which if I knew then what I knew now, had I pursued that, I would have done well. You don't need to have everything figured out. You can, there's a lot of need for people that aren't really good in engines. But thankfully I didn't know that. But I started working with my brother-in-law. I was a Finnish carpenter for a while. Basically, they build all the doors or all the houses, and we put in the doors, the windowsills, the closets. We put all the molding in around the baseboards, all that kind of stuff. And that was entertaining and fun, but I knew it wasn't something I was going to do forever. And then I caught wind of Aflac and started with them, where I was trying to convince people to buy health insurance from Aflac. Great stuff. I just wasn't very good at it. I was still very military, very stiff, and very to the point. So, great salesmen come in and they start talking to you, kind of put you at ease, that type of stuff. I'm going in thinking, I'm not going to waste your time, so let me tell you what I'm here for right now. And it didn't work very well. But I ended up linking up with an old high school sweetheart. Not really high school, but post high school. When I was in the military, I was at Fort Bragg. I was dating a girl. When I got orders to go to Germany, we had been dating pretty steadily for a while. And it was one of those things, do we get married and go together, or do we split up and I just come back? And the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, we haven't been dating long enough to really go into the whole marriage thing. So we said, let's revisit this. I'm going to Germany. I'll be back in a few years, and let's revisit this. Okay, now I'm about to date myself. Okay, this was pre-internet, not like the whole internet, but this was pre like email and all that kind of stuff. AOL was still a really big thing. Chat rooms were a great big thing, but like everybody having an email address and FaceTime and all that kind of stuff didn't exist yet. No cell phones, no none of that. So I go to Germany and I write her a couple letters and I never hear back from her. And so I'm like, okay, well, that's what happens to soldiers all across the world all the time. They've got a sweetheart that's all for them until they're not there anymore, and then it's like, all right, forget it. So I get it, no problem. So I move on with my life. 6 years later, I come back to the States, and then I guess this was probably 10, almost 14 years afterwards. I got out, and I was in Oregon, and my roommate from Fort Bragg had been searching for me on Facebook and all the other things for forever. Matt Smith is not one of those names that's really common. No, there's hundreds of thousands of us apparently. And so he was searching through all of them, and finally he gets a hold of me, and he's like, hey, I get this message. He's like, hey man, I don't know if you're the Matt Smith that was at Fort Bragg in the 503rd back in the 90s, but if you are, dude, this is Scott, and it'd be kind of cool if we got back together, just kind of caught up. And so I'm like, dude, yeah, Scott, my roommate, great guy. Turns out that he knew this girl, Melissa, and I saw her on Facebook for the first time since I was 20 something, and I was like, oh my gosh, she's got 2 kids. I'm like, cool. So I wrote her a message, erased it probably 30 times, and finally I just hit send. I have no idea what it was that I wrote, but I know in there it was something along the lines of, you've got you've got a couple of nice looking kids. Turns out those weren't her kids; those were her brother's kids. And so we kind of started this long distance relationship thing, back and forth for over a year. We flew back and forth, met each other, met the kids, all that kind of stuff. And then she was going to move to Oregon, and then we were going to end up, getting married and all that kind of stuff. She got cold feet pretty quick as the time got closer. As I found out later that she's not one of those people that likes to do things off the spur, so she likes to plan things out for a lot. And so I made the call. I'm like, all right, I guess we're going to North Carolina. So my mom was very not happy about that, but my dad even less so. But we ended up moving to North Carolina. I made a lot of dumb mistakes that if I could go back, I would do it different. But we ended up getting married, and we were married for 5 very taxing, trying years. The fact that I couldn't live up to the pedestal that she had built me up on through all those years of not remembering me or not knowing me. I couldn't fill the shoes of the person that she had created me to be. And I guess I was kind of bitter about that too. So it was kind of on both sides, but our marriage disintegrated. Things just went nuts. And after being in North Carolina for 6 months, because I had custody with my ex-wife, who was also from North Carolina, we had to meet at a custody hearing, and it was the first time I had seen Morgan since the day I left for Iraq that second time. And I was like, okay, so I saw her, and I was like, oh my gosh. And she saw me, but I didn't realize it. We go back, we meet with a mediator, and she says, wait a minute, why are you in North Carolina? I was like, oh yeah, so we moved here about 6 months ago. And so she lost it on me, rightfully so. But I explained, look, I knew we were going to have to do this, but I wanted them to meet, Melissa and be able to build a relationship with Melissa without Morgan being in the process. To cut this like forever story down, we ended up, when Melissa and I split, Morgan stepped up big time to help out with the kids, to be with the kids, to be around the kids. So we started seeing each other more often and more often. About a year into it, I was out at her dad's place helping her move a bunch of things that she had stored over there. And I picked up this tote and it rattled. And I was like, what is this? And I'm like, it feels like a box of rocks. And she's like, oh, it is. And I was like, why do you have a box of rocks? And she goes, open it. And so I open it, and this is gravel. Just regular crush and run gravel that you'd find in a parking lot. And I was like, why do you have gravel? And she said, those are the rocks that the kids gave me. And so every time for the 10 years, I guess it was 5 years here in North Carolina, but for those 5 years, every month she would come over and she would meet the kids. And every time walking back to the parking lot, the kids are going through this gravel parking lot, and they're seeing these sparkles on this it's gravel. So it's like granite with quartz in it. And they see these sparkles, and oh, mommy, look at this. And they pick it up, and they give it to her. And she kept every single rock my kids gave her for 5 years. And this is like gravel that most people would just be like, oh, that's cool. Kind of toss it off to the side when the kid's not looking. And so that really broke the idea that I had of her. And through a long restorative process, we ended up getting remarried after 10 years. So she's here today, kind of what's making me giving me the strength to do these type of things. But yeah, I don't even remember the question. I'm sorry. I hope I answered it. If not, I get on tangents. My bad.
What kind of impact do you think you've made in your career with all the students that you've taught so far?
Well, with the Cummins guys, I never see them again once they graduated. But I heard back from a few of them, and especially that one young lady. She was like, "Wow, you made it so easy to learn that stuff. I thank you." Apparently, she's moved up in Cummins pretty far. There's a couple other guys, like this one particular student. His name was Vernon. He was very, very thankful for the way that we did things and for how I taught him. But I never really saw them again. And so now I'm seeing my students during class and kind of building that rapport with them. And I'm getting to the point to where when they graduate in a few months, I'll actually be around to where I can see them again. Working in Huntersville, the students I had that weren't Cummins students, if I was teaching a regular class, they're still working in Charlotte at different shops. And I have no idea where these things are. I live in Granite Falls. So most of them have no idea where Granite Falls is. So I don't know. I can't really answer that yet. I hope it's been good. Some of the feedback I've got back has been good. So we'll just kind of let the pudding set and see what happens. Can I get back to you on that?
I guess so.
All right.
All right. So throughout your life, who, or I guess it could be a couple people, who do you think your biggest influences were?
Throughout my entire life, let me go with the quintessential mom. She she raised 3 rambunctious boys alone for 20 years. Now with my own kids looking back, I have no idea how she did it. I'm trying to find out how to contact the Pope to get her, set up for sainthood. But I mean, oh my gosh, I've got 1 boy and 1 girl. I can't imagine 3, especially knowing what I know about my brothers. Yeah, it was amazing. I have no idea how she did it, but she was always there for us, and she supported us constantly. And she worked to make it to where we never knew that we were poor. And growing up, I never knew I was poor. It wasn't until now I'm an adult and I'm looking back, I'm like, wow, okay, cool. Look at medical bills. Oh my gosh. Wow, we were constantly going to the hospital. But, so she's definitely one of them. My drill sergeant from basic training, Drill Sergeant David S. Fesco. I'll remember him to the day I die. That dude was amazing. He was a former Marine, and he was all about do it right, no matter what it takes. And so he really impressed that upon me. I earned the nickname Private Psycho because he found out about my dreams of gloriously dying with a 203 round to the chest. If you guys don't know what a 203 round is, it's a grenade launcher. So it's a big boom. I figure if you're gonna go painless, you're not gonna feel it, right? But he found out about that, and I was like, oops. So I got called Private Psycho from that day forward. But he really instilled the sense of duty in me, and the sense of get it right and do it right the first time. Period. So those 2 guys, and then there's Staff Sergeant Taylor Owens. He was my motor sergeant at Fort Bragg, and I say I grew up really quick in the military, but it took me a few years to get there. I was still an absolute knucklehead. I would probably have thrown myself out if I knew me as a sergeant. I was a bonehead, but not showing up for duty, not sleeping in late, all that kind of stuff. Just kind of being a young 22-year-old knucklehead. But he stuck through me, and he kept it. He saw something that nobody else did, and through that, it kept me in long enough to really grow up fully and kind of achieve, I guess, the militariness that I needed to be, the soldier that I needed to be. So those 3 people were huge in kind of forming me to be the soldier that I was. And I still consider myself a soldier. I still refer to everybody else as a civilian. It's a joke of I'm the butt of a lot of jokes in my classes, but because I keep referring to civilians and like, wow, really, you're a civilian now too? I'm like, yeah.
What's the best advice you have for young people trying to figure out what they want to do in life?
You're not finished yet. You're not a finished product right now. You are still growing. There is no reason to have your future planned out to a finite point. If you're at that point and you know what you're going to do, like I know that you do, that's awesome. That's fantastic. But you don't have to be there yet. You don't have to know what you're going to do. Just have an open mind and have a plan that you're going to take the next step. So many people are like, oh, I want to do this, but they don't do any kind of research into it. Look into it. Do yourself a favor. If you think that, being a radio host would be awesome, cool, look into it. If you really think that that pharmaceuticals would be great. I mean, shoot, if you want to like run a sewer station, by all means, whatever you're going to do, look into it, research it, and then find out if you don't like it. That's okay. Again, you don't have to make your choice right now. You've got plenty of time. That's the best thing I can say. We've got so many teenagers that are flipping out or under all this pressure from school counselors and from other people that, oh, what college are you going to go to? You have to go to a 4-year college. No, you don't. There's tons of jobs out there. You don't need to go to a 4-year college. Not everybody is 4-year college material. So find what you like to do and go do it. That's the best thing I can say.
Thank you to Matt for joining us today, and thank you, Matt, for serving our country for 16 years.
Thank you for your support.
Today's episode was recorded on March 31st of 2023. This episode was produced by Ethan, and it was hosted by Aaron, Emily, Jose, and Josh.